Are we? We're not doing video, are we?
You don't need to if you don't want to. If you want to stay anonymous, but we typically always do video and we'll show it, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, let's leave me off video.
Keep the anonymity.
Yeah,
they'll put a sign up at the airport of me, and I'll never get into the.
You'll be on the do not serve list at all the distilleries.
Hey everyone, we are beginning the process of rebranding. We're going to have a brand new logo, so look out for some things to come in the following weeks, as well as a change on our website, our t-shirts, everything else we also give away to our Patreon supporters. We're very stoked to launch it soon because it does look awesome. Today's guest is Lloyd Christmas, or better known as Bourbon Truth on Twitter and blogs. He's known for his anger towards the bourbon industry, and it's almost a right within its own to get called out by him, which means that you've probably made it. He was a guest back on episode 94, so go back and listen to that one before you listen here, and you're gonna know why he has it out for some folks. Remember, if you want to get every new episode emailed straight to your inbox, go to bourbonpursuit.com, scroll down just a little bit, and you're gonna find our newsletter sign up. Go ahead, sign up there, and every new episode is gonna come straight to your inbox automatically. Make sure you're subscribing to us on iTunes. Also keep those iTunes reviews coming in. That's what keeps us the #1 bourbon podcast out there. Go to YouTube. You can also watch all these videos that happen on YouTube or Facebook, but I know YouTube is growing in popularity, so subscribe to our channel, as well as make sure you leave comments on some of the videos if you like what you're listening to. And as always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and always support us on Patreon if you can. With that, enjoy this week's episode.
Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Welcome back to the episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast, the official podcast of bourbon. Today is going to be another repeat guest that we've had on before. Ryan hasn't had the pleasure of talking to him, but anybody that listened to the last podcast with him enjoyed it very much because he is an unfiltered yet knowledgeable resource in the world of bourbon. So, are you excited for this one?
I am. I enjoy his pithy sarcasm that he displays on Twitter, but excuse me for sounding like this. I have a sinus infection. Not only is Kentucky the bourbon capital, or it's the allergy capital of the world.
It really is.
Extreme highs and lows. But anyways, I appreciate, Mr. Lloyd Christmas coming on with us.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one.
So if anybody that doesn't know the name Lloyd Christmas in the bourbon world, he goes by the pseudonym of Bourbon Truth. Bourbon Truth at Tumblr, Bourbon Truth on Christmas. I forgot to say. I was getting Lloyd Christmas in my head.
And it's Christmas.
And we're getting around to that time. So, Lloyd, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Or should I say, welcome back. So,
did you already ask this the last episode? I can't remember. Is Dumb and Dumber your favorite movie?
Is that what it is? Is that really where it stems from?
That's where it comes from. I decided when all this started, I don't know, it was probably about 5 years ago. I just decided that it was going to be a fun frolic of with very little intelligence built in, and that was the best thing I could come up with at the time.
I love it.
It's stuck. I mean, everybody knows who Lloyd Christmas is.
Yeah. Every time Dumb and Dumber comes on TBS or something, no matter how many times I see it, I watch it, and I ruin the rest of my day because I just stop and whatever I do and watch it.
Well, and so for anybody that is trying to watch the video of this and wondering, well, why is Lloyd's screen black? Well, Lloyd is he keeps himself anonymous. He still wants to make sure that he has plenty of enemies. However, he doesn't want the enemies to know his face so they can see him on the street and
typical
shove him in the back or something.
Typical internet character.
Right.
Contrary to popular belief, I do meet plenty of people. I just don't go out of my way to make it easy.
That's quite all right with us.
But it makes it a little bit easier. There's places I would like to still be welcome in, and there's places that I'm probably not welcome in if they knew who I was. So it makes it easier on me.
Yeah, allows you to be honest, be yourself.
Yeah, we can do that. So the reason why we asked you to come back on is kind of just get an idea of what's new that you feel that is you need to gripe about, or is there something that is kind of in the past? Because let's see, you came on about I think it was in the early 70s. I think maybe during that episode we had on, and so that was quite a while ago. And since then, I don't want to say bourbon's changed as much, but the social factors changed a little bit. So kind of talk about, something that's been bothering you lately.
Well, I put a post up last night on Bourbon Truth on the Tumblr. That's probably one of the most recent ones, on just the stupidity of the drink and just how dumb people are doing things. And it's if you haven't read it, or if people haven't gotten to it yet, I cover a couple of different things, but one of the things that stood out in my mind, and I just couldn't take it anymore, I had to speak out on it, is people buying partial bottles. It's like you're buying secondary. That's one thing that's almost become quasi acceptable. I mean, I don't know if we can even count secondary as black market anymore in a strange way where it is, but having partial bottles being sold and sample and bottle splits being sold, some of the things that people are just throwing their money away on right now are just insane. The amount of money that people are spending on bottles. If I go back and I looked at my blog and I looked at the different, each year or so I write another one. I keep talking about how expensive things are and how shocking things are when they're expensive. It keeps getting worse and worse. And I use the example of black prints. I can't understand how people are paying $500 for that crap that's there without really knowing much about it, except knowing that Whistle Pig doesn't do a very good job at keeping money in your pocket.
They sure don't. I mean, it's just another source dry whiskey, right? And they are definitely pushing the bounds of what people are going to be paying in the secondary market, or not even that, paying in the retail market for it.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to make it sound like it's a something awfully special, and I didn't read the article because I would have vomited in my mouth, but the whiskey advocate from this month, this quarter, had an article in there about what to collect, and they had Raj, formerly from Whistle Pig, because I hear he's been fired finally. He did an article, and he called the farmstead as the collectible that he would that what he would recommend for a collectible that in 10 years will be worth $10,000, and that's like
sounds like Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin at least did it. His swill's never going to do it, especially not farmstead or the farm stock. I think they call it, not farmstead, and they're but thinking of yourself as a future collectible that you should put up on a shelf, never touch it, is pretty pompous, because most people will tell you they want you to drink it, and that's where it belongs, being opened up and drank. So when you see
most people, you mean like the distilleries, right? Like that's their goal at the end of the day, right? They're not trying to create something that is just a shelf trophy, needless to say.
Well, it's hard for somebody to put out a bottle that is really expensive. I mean, if you look at the Russell's 1998 bottle, that bottle must have cost a lot of money to make. And if you remember the Russell's tradition, really, they put a lot of money into the packaging of those. It's hard to believe that somebody's going to drink through those and throw those in the trash. So either they're expecting that somebody's going to keep it after the fact, or that someone's going to keep it. But having it as a collectible, it's definitely something that's happening more and more now.
Right.
We never really saw. A couple of years ago, nobody would ever dare say, here's a collectible and this is something that you're never going to drink. About the only ones that I won't open are the signed bottles that were signed by people that I give a shit about. There's a lot of people that, who cares? The guy that's supposed to be the master distiller, like a Dave Pickerel, that's the master distiller of 142 different places. I don't really care if I ever open a bottle of that it's got his signature on it or not, because the guy hasn't turned a knob in probably 50 years. So, but there are bottles that I'll save as that are more more personal to me and sentimental than I'm going to save because they're collectibles. Collectible, I'm hoping is going to get drank one way or another. If I don't drink it, it gets sold and somebody else is going to drink it. At least that's the thought process. But thinking
what kind of bottles? What kind of bottles are you talking about keeping? What are collectibles for you?
You know what?
Yes, it's got to be some of those Hershes that you got stuck away in the basement.
I've sold off my Hershes. I've sold off my. I haven't really told too many people this, but I had a very, very sizable collection, over 1,000 bottles, that I sold off, and I turned my collection into a condo on the beach in Florida.
There you go.
Nice.
That's the best way to do it right now. You got in early and you had an investment.
Yeah. So, so that's my joke now is that my collection's in Florida, and that's where it is. So I sold off most of those. The Pappy that I have, I keep a couple bottles of that for rainy days if I have clients that I need to get a bottle of Pappy too. But I've got a couple bottles of Pappy opened, and There's nothing wrong with Pappy. I know that lately it's going downhill, and there's reasons for that, I think. But I don't get all weak in the knees like most people do when they see a bottle of Van Winkle.
Mm-hmm. So, you had mentioned that a few different things, right? And maybe a little contradictory as well. So as saying that, people shouldn't buy these as shelf trophies or investments. However, it seems that it sort of just happened to work out for you, that they just turned into investments for you, right?
Playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Well, I don't buy 1,800 bottles to drink. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm fortunate that I'm not.
Quitter.
And it would be pretty damn hard for me to go through that many if I were.
No, I understand.
But an example for you is when Booker's 25 was due to come out, I made it a point to be at the store when they first got it in and try it. And this is before anybody had really heard of it or really cared about it. And I had it, and it was phenomenal. It was one of the best bourbons I've ever had. And with that, I bought about 40 bottles of it. Not planning on drinking all of them, obviously saving some, but I bought a whole ton of it with the intent to sell it at some point. Now, if a truck pulled up and it had black prints on it, I'm not buying any of it. I mean, at some point, I'll probably try it. I've had people that have told me that it tastes like good $70 rye. I don't need to know much more than that. So at some point I'll try it and I'll have it myself. And I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that for $500, it's ridiculous. And I would never buy one of those because I don't think the value will go up. And I think that it's going to stay where it's at. If I'll give you another example. I was in a liquor store probably about 3 years ago, and there was a clearance bin, and it was in a shopping cart. And I went into the shopping cart, and I looked in the shopping cart, and it was full of Black Maple Hill, old Black Maple Hill, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, 18-year-old. And this is when Black Maple Hill was pretty much gone. Mm-hmm. And the probably the small batch was going to be coming out shortly. So it hadn't really gone completely crazy, but it was pretty much gone from shelves. And I saw that, and I grabbed that, and I knew that I was never going to open those and drink them. So I think there are cases when you're looking at a stack of money versus seeing something that's supposed to be a collectible, and you're not going anywhere near it because you realize that it's not going to be worth much. I mean, people are buying things because they have a commemorative label on it. Imagine buying Old Forester, the Statesman, that came out, because it was a movie tie-in. I mean, nobody would ever care about that or buy that. And there are people that are out there, especially new people, that are taking advantage of buying stuff like that because they think it's going to have some kind of a major value. They don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So if I'm being a hypocrite, I'm at least a hypocrite that has a little bit of knowledge in what I'm doing with it.
That's true. So in your opinion, I mean, are these, do you think you sold too early? Talking about all these Booker 25ths and whether they're, you got rid of some of your Black Maple Hills. I mean, yeah. The values are continually increasing, and I don't know if we're going to see a max or a peak.
Because they're not making any more of it.
They're not making any more of it, right? I mean, the unicorns are probably just going to keep going up. Do you agree with that? And do you think you might have gotten out a little too early?
I probably did. I probably lost about 20%, but I don't mind doing what I did when I did it. It's like playing the stock market. There's never a good time to get out. And if you look at the tracking and the trending for collectible whiskey that they're keeping track of now, and some of the magazines and some of the auctions, there's some things that are just incredibly valuable. If you look at something like a Linnell's.
The Red Hook, yeah.
Yeah, the Red Hook rye. If you look at the Bitter Truth rye, some of those older ryes that KBD put out a while ago that they put names on. I think I saw a Blue Smoke. Blue Smoke is a barbecue restaurant in New York, and they did a private label of a Van Winkle, and Blue Smoke did a private barrel of Van Winkle. That went absolutely crazy. So if I had things like that, I probably would have held on to them. I didn't have any of those, but I probably would have held on to those a little bit longer, because those just have a cult status to them. And the Red Hook rye is probably somewhere around $10,000-$15,000 now is my guess. If somebody had one.
Yeah, they're crazy. I know like $5,000 might have been something about a year and a half ago, but now they've just gone insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's people out there that are willing to put their money out there, and they want that shelf trophy. The people that have the Van Winkle 25-year-old, that came out at about $2,000. They're now going for
$10,000. Yeah, something like that.
I think they're probably north of $10,000 now. I've seen them for higher than that. What I'm seeing, and I put this in the blog, my recent post. You're seeing people in. Oh, you guys still there?
Yeah,
we're still here. Yep.
Okay, your picture disappeared for a second.
It only pops when we talk.
All right. I saw a New York. There's a couple different people. LA, there's a few people, and in DC, there's a guy, and they're buying up the secondary market at pretty much what secondary is, and then reselling it again. So they're rebuying it from the secondary and then reselling it. So what's that called? The thirdary?
Well, I don't know. Like I was funny because I had this sort of enlightening moment too when I was thinking about the 3-tiered system. I was like, it's more like the 6 or 7-tier system now, right? Because it goes in the hands of 1 or 2 or 3 consumers before it actually hits the hand of somebody that's actually going to open the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of those are going to be gifted for expense accounts, and some of it is probably wives or girlfriends giving them to husbands. I don't want to sound sexist, but if I had to take a wild guess, I'd say that it's not too many husbands giving it to their wives.
You're probably right. It's probably accurate.
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, has it happened? I'm sure it probably has, but guys are foolish enough to want to spend $5,000 on a $300 bottle of booze.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and you mentioned I guess Kentucky Owl or Kentucky Owl Rye in the article, and it is kind of crazy that it's priced that high. Do you see that as a long-term investment for that particular brand? Because it will be starting to put out who knows what with the Stoli Endeavor and whatnot. But I'm with you. It seems kind of weird that it's valued so much, but it is pretty good whiskey.
Well, it's never had the legendary appeal that other things have had, and that's why they are what they are. It's like the first Van Winkle decanter. That's way up there, but it's not crazy. It's not. I think it's probably around $6,000. It might be more now since the second decanters come out. But that one went up, and for probably the last 2 years is stabilized. And part of that is that have you ever had the Van Winkle decanter, the 23-year-old?
No.
Never seen.
Do you know who you're talking to over here? We're just
laymen.
Yeah, we're early times bottled and bond kind of people over here.
We're peasants.
I had it with 5 other guys. We each had a sip. We all pitched in, bought a shot of it, and each had a sip of it. and it was okay. It was pretty woody, but I wouldn't call it legendary. Its legend is in what it is, and that's, I think, where you see a Kentucky Owl, is that it's a self-created legend. It's not from what's in that bottle. It's not like Linnell's, where you're going to be drinking one of the best ryes that's ever been produced. But there's cheaper ways to drink the type of rye that's in a Linnell's that's not called Linnell, and it isn't that anywhere near as expensive. But still, people want to drink it that way. With the Owl, I don't see it happening. I think that Kentucky Owl might be something like, the best way to maybe take a shot in the dark at it, if it does anything, is it'll be like the Sour Mash from E.H. Taylor, where there was one of them at the beginning, and there really wasn't that much put out, and people need it to complete their verticals. So you might see something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll have to fill it to get all the batches or whatever.
Fair assessment. So I kind of want to go back to a little bit how this first started. We were talking about bottle splits and people paying $500 for an open bottle. So I guess first off, give our listeners a reason why they need to be cautious of that, and it should be pretty
common sense.
pretty easy to see. But why do you think that people feel the need to sell a half open bottle of Pappy 20 to make some money back, maybe because they realize that they overpaid or something? Yeah.
Well, the story usually goes something like, I open this one up and it's not for me. Does anybody want to buy what's left? And oddly enough, a lot of times half of the bottle is left. Now, I don't know how it got to half a bottle if it wasn't for them.
It was just a bad couple days.
Yeah,
that like 15th try was going to be the next.
It's like, when you get to the last bite of your steak and you're like, oh, it was overdone. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at my bottles that weren't for me, it's barely past the neck. It's just a half an ounce has been poured out of it, and that's it. Which is probably another reason to be suspicious. But I guess you got to trust the person, and I mean, if you know the person and you know that they're absolutely positively honest, that might be one thing. But there's not that many people out there. I mean, most of us know each other from whiskey. We don't know each other from childhood or that sort of thing. It's not like anybody's ever pulled you from in front of a train or saved you on a battlefield that's earned their credibility. So it's tough. It's tough, but people do it. People buy it. There's websites and there's social media groups that are just bottle split groups.
Right. And I mean, but don't be wrong. I think there is something good in people that will sell a 2-ounce sample of something for not at cost, but much cheaper than you would pay for most of the bars in the country. However, again, you have to have a validity of the source that it's coming from.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I would, the majority of the time, or even greater than the majority of the time, you're fine. But that's hard to figure out. And you've got to build up a lot of credibility for somebody to trust you that way.
Yeah, I think the much better way to do the sample is to do like a sample trade, kind of, you send them something, you give me back. I think that's much smarter way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that you stand the best chance with something like that. Something like that better than someone saying, I'm going to open up this bottle of Linnell's and everybody that's going to get a 1-ounce sample is going to send me $400.
Mm-hmm. So I guess give me some examples of some of those bottles that you think that you've
I've just thought of this. I've done that before. I've bid on the Red Hook Rise samples. Yeah, so I'm I'm one of the stupid people he's talking about. But,
yeah, well, at least you would have had a shot, but you didn't win, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right?
So what are some of those bottles that you think you've opened that you said, all right, well, I can get rid of this one. I'm not gonna be able to stomach it.
I've never sold a partial bottle before. I've had people that people that have come over that we've done some tastings and some hanging around at the house, and people will be like, "Oh, look, doesn't look like this one's ever been opened." And I'll be like, "Oh no, I opened it. I had a one shot and I didn't really like it." And they'll be like, "Oh, can I buy that then? Because I like it." And I'll be like, "All right." I remember there was one was a Centennial. And they bought it from me. So they asked me, I hadn't planned on selling it. So I can't say I've never sold a partial bottle, but I've never offered one up for sale, and I've never done it online. It's always been in person. So the person that's a little bit different, where the person's actually seeing the bottle, being able to taste it first. But it's not something that that I'll probably ever do, or ever get into, because I'm kind of against it. I think that.
Yeah, you sold all your bottles off. You have no more to get rid of.
I still have probably 500 bottles that are open, and
you're nuts.
I am, and there's probably 150 of those I'll never drink another shot of, because they're not very good.
Right.
And, I'm kind of getting tired of being the guy that buys the bottle to get one, but at the same time, there's curiosity involved with it. I remember I was at Trader Joe's with my wife, and Trader Joe's had their own bourbon. And I was like, geez, I wonder what Trader Joe's bourbon is like. I'm really curious. So I bought it, I took it home, and I had some of it, and it was pretty good. I haven't been back to it. I haven't had a second pour from it because there's so many other options. But it's not that I haven't drank more of it because I don't like it. It's probably because there's just too many options, and I don't see people coming over to my house wanting to drink Trader Joe's bourbon either.
Probably not, right? That always seems to be the case. Is when you have a nice collection, you have people over. The last thing they want to do is just drink your everyday things that are set on the shelf, right?
Yeah,
exactly. There's a few things that I still want to kind of keep in the back to make it really difficult for them to find, because there's probably about 2 or 3 pours left in it. When it's gone forever. And some of those things are classics. And,
absolutely,
great old Willet bottlings and things like that.
So when you buy a lot of these things that you just are sparked out of curiosity, I mean, is it because you necessarily you're just really curious about it, or maybe there's something that you have to find out for yourself because you don't trust somebody else's reviews or anything like that?
As crazy as it sounds, sometimes I'll buy something in anger to try to prove that it sucks. And it's like, okay, I got what I wanted. It sucks. Now what do I do with it? But usually that's not the reason I'm buying things. I'm buying things because there's some reputation. Yeah, there's reputation coming out that it's supposed to be pretty good. I've heard, positive things from other states that it's already been released in. I've read something that's interesting. There's a new, not new, but they're a craft distillery up in Vermont called Mad River, and they've been doing some interesting bottlings. And so they came out with a maple finish. They came out with the PX finish rum. They just came out with the Burnt Rock bourbon. And I'm like, this is a craft place that's up there. They're doing it themselves. It's their stuff. And I was curious of what it tasted like, because I'm not going to be able to walk into a bar and ask for those and try them. So I bought them, and they're young. But
they're good for craft.
Good for craft. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of, we always say, oh, it's good for craft on the show, but I think, you had a funny tweet not too long ago that said there's so many nice ways that reviewers say the booze sucks, and they just need to grow a pair and say it. So is this
instead of saying it says it's young, and
yeah.
Exactly. Well, I gave Fred Minnick a hard time a few months back. I said, I am so tired of you saying this would be good in a cocktail. You know,
Just be good with some coke in it.
There's
when you say good in a cocktail, you're usually giving it a 70. You know, and then the numbering system is off anyway, and the rating, you know, in ratings, and I've talked about that before, where the ratings are skewed because, you know, 80% of the ratings are somewhere between 85 and 95. They don't publish anything that's below a 70. So if something's really horribly putrid, you're never going to find out about it.
Yeah.
But
So if it's in the low 80s, that means it's bad.
pretty much, but the producer doesn't think it is, because you'll see the shelf tags or the hang tags. That
double gold, right? Everything's got a double gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, 89. You know, you enter it in enough places, you're going to be able to get something out of it. One place was it was funny as hell. I was on a cruise ship, and there was this whiskey that I've never seen before, never heard before, and they were selling it, and it had gotten the platinum medal at some country fair in New York State. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, that's about as low as you can go.
Mm-hmm. That's reaching.
I mean, nobody's even entering stuff like that. And
I think it's funny because, you know, you had mentioned 89. Like when I was in school, getting an 89 on a test, like that was a good day.
81 was good for me.
yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think it, and scores have gotten a little bit better. I don't know if you noticed what they did this year with Whiskey Advocate, where now they have a panel that's retasting to come up with the final top of the year. What do they do? 30 best.
Yeah, I didn't really read into it too much, but
Well, it's funny you say that because, well, finish your point. I want to follow up that with a question.
Sure. I'm sitting here having a little sip myself. So what they've done now is they've taken the top or the better rated whiskeys from the year and retasted them in a panel format rather than an individual format, where the initial and original scores came from, and then the panel gives it a new score. So the winner this year of the Whiskey of the Year actually has two scores. They have the original score, and then they have the panel score. And that's confusing as hell.
Are they actually different?
Yeah, they're two different, because Fred Minnick gave the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof a 90, I believe, and then the panel score gave it like a 95 or a 96.
Mm-hmm. And was it, you think, I don't know, was it done blind, or was it, you know, you have the label sitting in front of you? Yeah.
The panel is supposedly blind. I don't know.
I don't think the individual is, because
I don't
here
think
at Fred's office, he has the samples just sitting right there and they're labeled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's labeled. Unless they hire somebody to re-pour them and do it so that they can't tell, which I don't think too many people are doing. Supposedly, if you read Paul, was it Packalt? He
No idea. We'll just take your word for it.
Well, he does spirits review, and he supposedly in the morning they come in and they have them ready for tastings in the morning, and they go through the that day's tastings, and they're done blind because somebody pours it for them and gives it to them, and so they don't know what they are. So it is possible to do it that way, but I don't think that's happening with most of the people out there.
Right.
Well, you're talking about Whiskey Advocate, and one of your tweets, you said Whiskey Advocate top 20, they're either bored or this is a rotten year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm kind of confused. Well, for me, I thought 16 was the rotten year and 17 was kind of a better year of, the special releases. But
well, let's take a look. I actually have that right in front of me. and we can.
Got to check his notes, see what's going on here.
It's great for radio.
It really is.
Okay, so you've got Elijah Craig as number one, and I'll go with that. I mean, Elijah Craig's good, and I understand what they did. They wanted to make it accessible because they were giving things like Sazerac 18 that were impossible to get, and they were giving things that were like $3,000. They were giving them whiskeys of the year, and that's just blindly stupid to make something, that's inaccessible, the whiskey of the year, or putting it on the top is unfair. And I wrote a big long thing about it. And I don't want to say I was responsible for having them change it, but they did change it this year. So I like that. All right. So I won't go over every single one of them, but some of them are are just don't make any sense.
A little bit off the wall. Yeah.
Well, for instance, they give a Compass Box young one a number 7. I'm
assuming it's not as good as to be number 7 because I've never had it.
There's a lot of Scotch in here, and there's a lot of Isla Scotch in here. There's Lavagoulin, there's an Ardbeg, there's Bavlaki, and I'm not necessarily a peat head. I don't really want that much peat, so you've got to have a special taste to want that. And I think that you'll probably find that most Scotch drinkers are not Isla people. I mean, there's people that do Isla that are just iron fist Isla people, and they'll never switch. But that's not what I'm looking for when I'm drinking Scotch usually. Little Book number 11.
Little Book's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I've never really played with, or actually had it, so I have no idea. I guess the other question is to say, like, is there like one credible source when it comes to all these whiskey reviews or something like that? Because you've got Whiskey Advocate, you've got Jim Murray, you've got other people that come out with their own bourbon of the year, whiskey of the year. So at what point does it just become too much that it's just constant?
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
Little Book's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I've never really played with, or actually had it, so I have no idea. I guess the other question is to say, like, is there like one credible source when it comes to all these whiskey reviews or something like that? Because you've got Whiskey Advocate, you've got Jim Murray, you've got other people that come out with their own bourbon of the year, whiskey of the year. So at what point does it just become too much that it's just constant?
Yeah, the one thing somebody hasn't done is they haven't come out with like a chart that shows you everybody on a single line and shows you what they rated it. Because usually that's not universal. And I think that your Jim Murray is. I used to really be a Jim Murray fan, and I've completely taken a complete U-turn. And now I really don't like Jim Murray, and I haven't bought his book the last 2 years.
You think it's just like corporate influence or something like that, or what's your take?
Well, he's obviously very, very slanted towards certain brands, and from what I hear, he's getting paid as a consultant by certain brands. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be, there was a reviewer that I gave a hard time to at one point because he was going around helping them market a particular brand when it was introduced. And at the same time, he was reviewing and rating that same brand. And I'm like, how can you do both of those things? You really can't do both of those things. And he doesn't anymore, but a lot of people are still doing it.
Right. I mean, everybody tries to figure out a way to side hustle and make a buck here and there. So, I mean, you can't. I understand there is a conflict of interest there, but that kind of is what it is. I guess the other kind of question I want to throw at you is when you look at these different competitions, whether there's San Francisco, whether there's that random one in New York, a lot of the distillers that are pretty much already prominent, right? The Buffalo Traces, Jack Daniels, whomever, they don't actually submit anything anymore, right? It's more or less a lot of these young guns trying to make themselves a name in the market. It seems to be more like a marketing aspect for a lot of them rather than actual whiskey coming out of these competitions.
Well, you have to submit your whiskey. You have to pay a fee to have your whiskey accepted. You have to, a lot of times, if your whiskey wins, you have to pay to mention the trademark name of the thing. And if you want to use their logo of their gold bar, or their silver coin, or whatever the hell it is, you've got to pay them money to use those things. So it's a big scam that you get tied into once you start doing that. I'm part of a group right now that we're trying to figure out a way to do this. But we want to buy off the shelf whiskey that's available to do blind taste tests within our group, and then do ratings, and then at the end of the year do a table panel live tastings to come up with the finalists. And that's going to be hard as hell to do and expensive to do. But if you want to do it, it's really the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Because once somebody's sending you a sample, it has the possibility that it's tainted. Because if somebody's going to send me a single barrel sample for me to taste that I'm going to put into my magazine, and I haven't tried that first to make sure that barrel is a pretty damn good barrel, then I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is they're sending these single barrels and all these expressions that most of the people aren't going to be able to try anyways. It's like these really limited expressions, or so it kind of skews for me anyways, because as a buyer, you're not going to buy that exact barrel or whatever sample they were tasting at the competition.
Exactly. I mean, I remember probably about 6 years ago, Heaven Hill won the Whiskey of the Year with their 18-year-old gift shop that came out during the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And that was one that they won with. But that barrel had 150, 200 bottles to it. So you'll never be able to find that. And of course, for the next 2 years, I think it was pretty sure it was the 18. They had stamped on the front of the bottle, winner of the whiskey of the year winner. I don't even think they put a date on it. So,
So do you think like single barrels should be eliminated from these competitions? They should just be like small batches?
If the brand itself is marketed as a small batch, then do it as a small batch. If it also comes out as a single barrel, then that should probably be put into a single barrel category, just like all the privates should be put into a private category.
Gotcha.
So I guess let's kind of like shift it a little bit, right? I mean, you had mentioned that distillery from Vermont that's doing a lot of good things, and this is one thing that we see a lot of times that people want to talk about. They want to talk about the growth of the market and saying there's now 4,000 craft distilleries that are happening and growing across the nation. So what do you see as the movement of craft? Whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, whether most of them are giving everybody else a bad rap? Like what's your kind of thoughts on that?
My thoughts on craft changed a little bit when I had an interesting conversation with a guy, and I'll tell you what that was. And just people throwing things together, jumping into it, and with very little knowledge or education. There are some people that are going down to Moonshine University and taking their course and trying to get as good as they can with it and get schooled. There's some people that are hiring other people to help them. And sometimes those other people have no clue. Sometimes they are helping them from a far distance. I went to Catskills Distilling, and it was really interesting afternoon that I spent with the owner named Monty Sack. And he told me this story where he decided that he wanted to start a distillery, and he befriended Lincoln Henderson. And Lincoln Henderson would tell him what to do and would be helping him out to kind of pinpoint and get the whiskey exactly where it should be. So he would note and tell him what he's tasting. He would send him samples, and Lincoln would say, "Oh, well, this is what happens when you get that. This is what's wrong with it. And when this happens, this is what's wrong with it. And you did this wrong because you got that flavor out of it." And he slowly started to make the whiskey so that he would take these flaws out. And oddly enough, somebody told me this, that it was a master distiller, which kind of floored me. One of my favorite tasting notes is like a bubblegum tutti frutti flavor. And they said that that's actually a flaw. And I was like, that's a flaw that I want.
I was about to say, it sounds delicious.
Yeah, because you're not tasting that in very many of these. When I taste it, I'm like, oh, I want this one. This is the one I want to buy more of the one bottle. And that's one of the things I say all the time is the true measure of a whiskey is, would I buy a second bottle? Or if I try it in a bar, will I go to a store and buy it? That really sets them apart. And when you're dealing with craft whiskey, I can't really tell you that, I would say that of 50 bottles of craft whiskey I've bought, maybe 2 or 3 times have I ever bought a second bottle of it.
It's a hard market, right? I mean, it definitely is. I mean,
it's hard to take that leap of faith, because most of them are expensive, and so you're like, and then it's young, so it's like it's hard to give them a chance.
It is. It's very hard to give them a chance, and I, if you look at how Hill Rock got started, they have got a very interesting story where a venture capital guy got involved. He went out. He built a beautiful distillery up in upstate New York, he actually went and he hired Dave Pickerel to help him as the master distiller to start, although Pickerel only shows his face there once in a while. And they came out with the Solera aging, and they were one of the very first ones in the United States that pushed the Solera aging. And then they came out with the rye, then they came out with the malt whiskey. And now they're doing some experimental barrel finishes and things like that. And they specialize pretty much in smaller, underaged, I'll call it underaged barrels. You need the age, and I'm not a believer of the small barrel. You can rush it, you can make it faster because it's a smaller barrel.
Mhm.
I've never tasted a smaller barrel that I ever thought was, blew my mind. I've tasted some craft stuff before that they kept around longer. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to pick up one that's that they've kept around for 7 years. It's a brewery, and they started doing rum. And when they started doing rum, they started putting away some whiskey. So I'm going to be picking up this one that's a 7-year-old whiskey. So I'm really curious to taste what a craft that's 7 years old tastes like.
Yeah, you typically don't see that, right? You typically, if you're lucky, it's 2.
Yeah.
Right. That's the lucky barrier. But even if it gets better around 4, then hope. And I haven't really had any craft that is 6 years or anything like that yet.
Yeah, you can you could find some things like it, but it's quirky. Like something like McCarthy's was craft. I mean, he was in an eau de vie and doing a lot of brandies and things, and he went overseas, fell in love with the Isla style, so he started making his own Isla style single malt. So that's McCarthy's. His is like, I think, 6 years old, although he sold the company. Then you've got places like St. George that's been around now, so they've got some 5, 6, 7-year-old stuff. You've got Charbet. That's but Charbet is so strange and off the wall.
Yeah, they're out there.
I mean, I had one that was cannabis finished from Charbet. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy too.
Yeah, you can talk.
Hops, whatever.
Yeah, you can talk about Charbet for an hour. That's how strange Charbet is. So there are a few out there, but the bottom line is most of these places have to get money back to the bank. They got to pay their loans off really fast. So by the time this stuff has color, they're putting it in a bottle and selling it. And it's usually not a very good thing because they'll sell one bottle in the tasting room, but they're not going to sell another bottle.
It's good for cocktails.
Cocktails. Yep. Starting fires.
Oh man! So you had mentioned, we talk about whiskey a lot with you and everything like that, but you had mentioned rum a few times. Are you jumping on the rum train too, or are you still just gonna be bourbon truth at the end of the day?
Am I rum curious? I would say that rum. The way that rum works, rum. The age on rum is it has to have some of that in it. So if it says it's 15 years old, it doesn't have to all be 15 years old. It just has to have 15 years old in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty tough to figure out. I've got a hard enough time with whiskey to get better with whiskey. So I'm pretty much stuck with whiskey. I have been trying some rums. I'm curious to try a few of the new ones that are coming out that they're bringing into the States that are supposed to be really, really good. But I don't think the next big thing is rum. I think that I think the next big thing, I'll still say the next big thing is probably going to be brandy.
Really? That's a first. I didn't expect that because, don't get me wrong, like everybody jumping on the rum train. There's that one distillery out of France that's pushing out their Armagnac that everybody's going crazy for. But I haven't really anybody talked about brandy too much.
Yeah, I think brandy will be one of the big things. I mean, if you go out and try to find Laird's 12-year-old apple brandy, you'll spend a lot of time looking for it and trying to get it. If it's brought into your state, it's
like Laird's?
Laird's, Lairds.
Okay.
Laird's is actually Laird's story is probably as close as you can get to the truth of what Michter's used to be. I mean, the new Michter's that's owned by Chatham.
I was about to say, wait, did they have a Washington connection too with a nickel or a quarter or whatever?
Laird's actually has records signed by Washington where the troops, where they supplied Applejack to the troops, and they have documentation going back to the 1700s where their family actually had a distillery to make Applejack. So, other than Prohibition, they've been. I'm trying to think if they got a license for Prohibition, but they moved their distillery from New Jersey to Virginia, but they have quite the bit of history. But the 12-year-old apple brandy is tough to find right now. Very, very tough to find. I think that people are starting to pick up on a lot more brandies, and that's where I would, think when I'd be running out there buying the brandy that I think is going to be collectible next year or whatever. No, absolutely not.
We're gonna have a bourbon truth effect on Laird's 12-year-old.
It was insane. It was
because as soon as Fred was on Rum Curious and talked about Dorley's, go to Total Wine, it's gone. So
I was gonna say, you're going to Total Wine after this.
I'm going to Total Wine, see if they got it.
Yep. No, that's what happens is
because I'm like you, I'm too curious, and it kills me. Like I gotta know what it tastes like.
No, I can. Once we get done, we'll exchange stuff. I'll get you some of the 12.
Will you sell me some samples?
I'll send you a sample. A real one.
$12 for 2 ounces. Yeah.
Take a picture of my hand on the bottle pouring it.
I like it.
We trust you. There we go. That made it back full circle, right?
Oh yeah.
So, we're not going to say the real name, but Lloyd, thank you again for coming on the show tonight. Unless you had another question you wanted to ask there, Ryan.
Real quick, because I really like this, because I kind of agree with it. Your one tweet said, if Buffalo Trace and Pappy Van Winkle don't want secondary sales, they should put out an annual release good enough you want to drink and not sell it. And I'm totally on this. Ever since Buffalo Trace has taken it over, I think the quality's just gone down, and I just don't understand. I got a 12-year the other day, and I opened it and drank it, and I was like, damn it, I should have sold it. Same thing with my 20-year. And it's like, Was
that a 12-year Van Winkle?
Well, yeah, the Lot B or whatever. And then I had a 20-year also opened and was quite disappointed. But
well, the way that they supposedly do it is that the Van Winkles have first crack at the wheated bourbons, and they keep a lot of the Van Winkles low so that they can age longer. For the most part, when you're talking about a 20 or a 23, they're not necessarily better. You're just putting them into hibernation, and you're keeping them as cold as possible so they don't go bad. So their 12, what is the difference between their 12 and a Weller 12? Is it that they've gotten first crack at those barrels so that they can put the better 12 in there, and then what's left over goes into the Weller barrels? But there was a time and a point where they were tasting every single barrel and whatever. And then, Julian was doing it, and I'm not really sure what the big mysticism is for Julian, because Julian didn't even want to be in the business. He wanted to, I think his degree was in economics and psychology or something like that. And he got dragged back into the business by his father in the 80s. So he didn't want any part of it. And then the luckiest son in the world, Ringo Van Winkle, now he is tasting some of the barrels too. And it's like, well, there's not some mysterious fairy that comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, okay, now you're a whiskey expert and you can go out and taste great barrels. I've done plenty of barrel picks before, and I've tried barrels before that other people liked. And I'm like, dude, if you want to pick this one, that's fine, but I want nothing to do with it. So when you take that and you go to Buffalo Trace, and Buffalo Trace is putting something out, they've only got so much that they can do, because 12 years ago, probably my guess is 2020, 2022, somewhere around there. That's probably when they started putting a lot more of it away. So what they've got put away right now, what they've got is what they've got. So a lot of it's just not good. And I think that's what you found, is that you opened it and you were just like, ugh. But at the same time, you were probably expecting a lot more out of it.
Well, I think most people are
selling samples.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are, and that's just the lure of that brand. You can't get enough of the Facebook groups that they want to rap on everybody that says the words Pappy 10 or Pappy 12, and they say I just started drinking a few weeks ago and I'm trying to find Pappy. So
I admit I find myself sometimes saying that Pappy 10 or 12 on that, and I'm like, whoops, better not say that. But
yeah, no, it's the whole thing, I would actually be kind of amazed if somebody ever wrote a book just on the phenomenon of Van Winkle and how it came to be what it is. And it's what's happening.
You mean the anti version of what's already out there?
I think you can give both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
I probably throw Minnick a bone and let him tear at it from both sides if he would do it. What's happening with the secondary sales and with with the 3-tier system with Van Winkle is just it's just crazy. There is that if you're reselling it, you're a horrible person. You should go to hell, basically. But at the same time, they know that the stores are doing this very same thing, except they've insulated themselves with saying that, oh, it's a distributor, and the distributor can do whatever they want. Well, it just so happens that in order to get those bottles of Pappy, you got to buy a pallet load of Dr. McGillicuddy's or a pallet load of Fireball or Rain Vodka or whatever it is. You've got to buy that if you're going to get it. And I almost broke a pretty big story about this last year, where a store sent me a photo of the sheet that the Sazerac rep left behind of how much that he had to buy in order to get Pappy at the end of the year. And I didn't do anything with it because I wanted to get a second person that would be able to tell me that they've at least seen that sheet before, and I couldn't get anybody to do it. So I left it alone. But I don't think there's anybody that it's a big mystery that they're thinking that they mysteriously get different amounts of Pappy for different reasons.
You sound like it's like one of those things. It's like a Don Corleone or a gangster thing. It's like, we can't pin them because we don't have enough proof, but we know it's there. So we'll just get them for tax fraud or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it almost happened with New York, because in New York, they do it a little bit differently with how you get your allocations and how you get your allocated items. And there was some lawsuits going around, and sooner or later, somebody's going to get fed up, one of these retailers, and they're gonna put their foot down. Enough is enough. I'm gonna try to put an end to all this stuff. And you're gonna see it. It's gonna hit the fan for sure.
Well, it'll be good when that day comes, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
To talk about.
No, they're if you looked at the numbers of what they put out, I know that I think it was it Blake that or was it Breaking Bourbon? They put out a list of what they foresaw as the number of bottles that were put out this year, and Sazerac put out a lot more certain types. They put a lot more Stag out. They put a lot more Van Winkle out. So they put a lot more out this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they took that from their other brands, and that's why you don't see. Why should I put a Weller 12 out when I can put a Weller put a Van Winkle 12 out and get 3 times more money for it or 2 times more money for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same exact thing. You don't see Weller 12 near as much as you see Lot B anymore.
Exactly.
But that's just the way it is. So.
Yeah, and they're saving antiques because those barrels are going to become what they're going to need in the future for the Van Winkle and any special weededs that they want to do. So it's kind of crazy out there what's going on, and every year it happens over and over again, and it seems like it gets worse.
Yeah, I don't think it's any better anytime soon, but I think that will that'll save it for another episode here in the future for sure.
Exactly.
So
rabbit hole later.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that later. So I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. We're going to have you on again here in a few months. So get another list of things you want to gripe about and blog about, and we'll be sure to talk about it.
Won't take long for me to get pissed off.
Yeah. So we can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, we like that. That's good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Good deal. So if you want to follow Lloyd, make sure you can find him at Bourbon Truth on Twitter, as well as you go to bourbontruth.tumblr.com. Read all his good blogs. I swear he's one of the most unfiltered, but
yeah,
it's a really good, I guess you'd say, I don't know. It gets you back to kind of like focusing on what's important again.
Yeah.
Right. He has a great article around there that says it just starts with "I don't care," but it goes for like 150 lines of "I don't care if you got some special label from the TTB that doesn't classify you as a bourbon whiskey," all this other kind of stuff. So make sure you go and you follow him on there. At the same time, make sure you subscribe to Bourbon Pursuit on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Bourbon Pursuit. And if you do like the show, please consider supporting us. Patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. And I want to say thank you, a shout out to all of the people that were actually watching this live today that were actually on Patreon. So if you do support the show, you can actually get links and watch these remote interviews we do to actually see it happening live and ask your own questions as we go. There wasn't a whole lot of questions that were asked this time, but there was some good kind of commentary happening as a sidebar.
Yeah, absolutely. And please leave us reviews and fill out those surveys, right?
Absolutely. Bourbonpursuit.com/survey.
Yeah, so we can figure out what you like. Please give us show suggestions, comments, feedbacks. We love hearing that because we want to know what to bring to you all. Everybody have a good day, and we'll see you next time.